on the advice of a good friend, I decided to try my HP Power Shutdown Recursion deck in a different ID, in the Next design. Now, the reason for running Next design is pretty obvious. Firstly, it offers me much stronger early game. I'm more resilient, and I'm able to actually score agendas early on. One very important agenda to score early on is profiteering, because that gives me a huge burst of credits that I'll be able to use for the rest of the game. And profiteering is good to score in my kind of deck because I don't actually need the bad publicity won't actually work against me, simply because if the runner has no breakers, they can't get through. So the bad pub won't matter. But the other reason to run Next design is to get more cards out. By getting more cards out, not only do I see more power shutdowns, but I also see more Next eyes, which improves the efficiency of my Next eyes. That would be great. So this is my first turn. I decide to there's a profiteering that I already installed in the remote, but instead of scoring the profiteering, I decide that it's time to leverage on the successful demonstration, which is a new event that I added, operation that I added in ever since switching to Next design. Actually, it does belong in the original Power Shutdown deck as well. The original Engineering the Future deck could use successful demonstration simply because I'm running so many binary eyes that end the run. So successful demo will be very important when it matters most, early on. That is where HB is weakest at. Having successful demonstration covers this little gap in this weakness in my build. So that's a good thing. In my previous deck, I used to run the level clearances instead, green level clearances. I needed those because I needed the card draw to see more power shutdowns. But with Next design, I find that I don't need too much card draw for obvious reasons. Next design really offers more card draw because you install ice and draw even before the game starts. So anyway, back to the game. I scored my profiteering, and as a result, I'm pretty rich. But this also leaves a gaping hole in my defenses. Now I cannot successfully keep Noise out using the Viper Trace simply because he has 3 bad pub to beat the Trace. And thankfully, he doesn't access either of my agendas in my hand, so I got very lucky there. But now I definitely need to patch up the hole in HQ. And things are looking bad as I find myself agenda flooded and am forced to trash one of my agendas into archives. As if trashing agendas into archives isn't bad enough, my deck does so with power shutdown and being agenda flooded without seeing Jackson's. But to make things worse, I'm up against Noise. He's already milling agendas into my archives, so this is looking very bad. If I don't get Jackson anytime soon, I will be in huge trouble. I deliberate between R&D and the remote to install the OCTGN, and I decide on the remote because I desperately need to score the ABT. Once I get an ABT score, I can do a lot of things. I can protect archives from random runs. I can protect R&D, which is currently pretty porous. It's a 1-strength code gate, which can be easily busted by the Crypsis that he just brought out. But he surprises me with a nasty stim hack. I didn't think he would use stim hack in Anarch because Anarchs don't really make good use of stim hack. But with Crypsis, stim hack makes sense, and I reckon he can get through this server with all his stim hack credits. So unfortunately for me, he's about to steal the ABT. So him passing through all my ice is but a formality at this point. The reason why I still rest my ice is to tax him heavily. This is just about the most taxing server you can ever ask for. Ichi costs 7 to break with Crypsis. The wraparound costs 8 to break with Crypsis without a Corona on the table. And his stim hack gives him only 9 credits, so he needs to fund all the other payments out of his pocket. But the 3 bad pub really helped him here. Without the 3 bad pub, he wouldn't be able to get through. But with the 3 bad pub now, he's left with 1 credit and is able to access my agenda. So I tell myself, I'm fine with that. He can steal 2 points. I mean, every corp bleeds agendas now and then. What I'm going to do is to install another ABT in the same server. Good luck raising funds to get through this time. 15 credits. No way he's going to be able to do that again. So with the ABT in my server, I'm ready to score that. And just as well, because my profiteering funds are running dry, I need the credits. I need more credits, but I also need to rest ice. And ABT does just that. It allows me to rest ice. So I watch as he starts digging up my R&D, but he doesn't have a medium out, so it won't be very effective. And it's time for me to score. I trigger the ABT. Hedge fund, Project Wotan. I mean, you can blame me for reckless ABT running, but after being agenda flooded, I've seen 4 2-pointers in my hand at one point in the game, and a profiteering. You would think that in a deck of 28 cards, there are only 4 agendas left. Surely I wouldn't be so unlucky. And surely I would hit more ice. Look at how many ice I have. I only have 6 pieces of ice on the board, a couple in archives, and 1 in my hand. Turns out I got so unlucky that I hit both hedge funds, which I really should have seen much earlier. So that single-handedly caused me to lose the game because on archives was the rotor turret, which would not keep him out. So I lost the game right there. When you play games, especially as the corp, there's always the element of bad luck. And I think in that scenario, running ABT was the right choice because against noise, I really cannot afford to play slow. I need to get my defenses up as quickly as I can and pump out agendas before he decks me out. So that was the risk I had to take, and it didn't pay off this game. Are there any limitations with running Nick's design? Well, I think Nick's design is rather poor. I mean, this game, I didn't feel poor at all because I had the profiteering to play around with, but the 3-bet part really hurt me. I'm considering taking them out because the thing is, I'm not exactly running completely binary ice, and this game, I didn't really use power shutdown. You can't power shutdown a Crypsis anyway. So, yes, I think I need to swap out the profiteerings because they are doing more harm than good, especially if that's the first agenda I rush out, which is the whole point with Nick's design. Okay, that makes me question whether I should be running Nick's design because, as I said, why are you running Nick's design? Because you want to get something done in the remote early on, be it an Adonis campaign or a squad agenda. Right now, the only thing I want to do is to get an early Adonis going, and this doesn't help at all. So, yes, I'll be playing another game, a rematch against the same opponent, in a future video. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and happy night.